All right, everybody, we're back here again. Two awakened men always talking like we promised. This time, since Daniel's still on vacation, we have Scott Wright. He's been joining us for the last two episodes and hope you've been enjoying it. Always enjoy the comments, so please feel free to let us know.
Greetings, everyone. I'm glad to be back.
And we're glad to have you, man. It's like you helped us out with having at least somebody else I could talk to. Because then
It's
it
been
would be
fun.
just me talking.
Yeah, I
Uh,
could kind of. I know there's a lot of podcasts where that's all it is, but I like a conversation myself.
I like conversation. I'm not
Yeah,
I can do like a monologue if I need to. I mean, you know
good.
me, I can talk. So,
Yeah, I do know you.
so, so what's been going on with you, Scott? How's things been going?
Been going good. It's been a kind of an interesting week. I've had a lot of things I've been doing. We have a gathering that's coming up in June with some people that we're getting prepared for. So this weekend, we're preparing to go down. It's in a place called Tabiona, Utah,
Hmm.
and a guy owns a big ranch there, and we go and kind of clean up. It has big cottonwood trees, and we go and cut down off some of the dead branches that are overhanging, and that we don't want anybody to get injured by any falling branches. And so we got that planned for this weekend,
Hmm.
and we'll do some fire time afterwards and sit around the fire and bang on some djembe drums, and it'll be nice.
Now, do you do that like every so often? Is that a like something you do to help
This
out the area or something?
Well, this gathering is once a year, so they do it once every year in June. It's always around the solstice, so the solstice is always part of it, and it's a primitive skills gathering. So if anyone knows anything about primitive skills gatherings, or if you've attended those ever before, if you haven't, I would highly recommend it, because it really takes you back to a time when we had to do things differently. Um, Drumming is an example that brings people together in community and together with dancing. That's one of the things that I try and really be involved in and try and head up. And I've got other people that come with me that drum.
Hmm.
And a lot of the other things we do are they build knives, they make arrowheads, they flint knapping, chipping obsidian and flint and different things to make arrowheads and knives, blades, and fire making, hand drills for fire, bow drills for fire, native pottery made in the old ways. They fire it in a fire, create it. They go actually pick up clay from the area and
Hmm.
make pottery from that.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, there's lots of different things. The thing, it's called Fire to Fire. This one is called Fire to Fire. I attend several different ones. In fact, I'm leaving next week to one in Washington, and it's called Between the Rivers. So I attend Fire to Fire, Between the Rivers, and another one in September called Rabbit Stick.
Rabbit stick.
And
Oh yeah, that's the one you told me about. I remember
that's the one
that.
I told you got to come to. That's the one you've got to come. Sure.
Yeah, it's
That's
really
the
cool.
big one. That's the original. That's been going 33 years, I think. That one's been going.
Mhm. Yeah,
So
yeah. I've always wanted to do primitive. I just haven't. I don't know why. I just haven't done it. I've had it in my blood for a long time, and every time
sure.
something would always get in the way. And I think maybe this year, hopefully, it won't get in the way, and nothing will get in the way, and I can make it out there. It'd be nice.
I hope you can. You'll really enjoy it. Yeah, I've seen it change people's lives for the better so many times. It connects you to nature. We're in nature. We're camping.
Hmm.
We're around the fire. We're together as community. We're sharing. There's children there. There's families there,
Hmm.
and there's programs actually set up for the children where the children can learn. And I do some teaching there. I'm actually doing a drum making class, so we're going to make frame drums
Hmm.
out of elk hide. So I've got the
Oh,
frames
nice.
and I've got the hide, and we'll make frame drums from elk hide. And there's kind of drawing a blank on what all the classes are, but there's lots of them. The gathering that I was talking to you about was Rabbit Stick, and like I said, that's one of the original gatherings, and it's in September, and there's about 500 people usually that come to that one, and
Wow.
about 100 of those people are instructors. So you've got a wide variety of classes that are being taught.
Amazing.
Nature Connection. There's a guy that came from, I think he's from Washington, that came and taught a class on mushrooms.
Mm-hmm.
And this guy knew more about mushrooms than any other human being I've ever met in my life. And I mean, he knew what they looked like. He knew what the scientific names were. And just a young guy, totally self-taught. He didn't go to college and learn all this out of a book. He actually went out in the wilderness and tested different kinds of mushrooms and he seeks out the ones that are edible. He actually takes spores around with him, and when he finds a dead log, he'll plant some spores in there. So he's out like propagating these mushrooms all over in the wilderness, and very cool guy.
Yeah,
there's really interesting people like that come to these gatherings.
There's something about connecting to nature that does bring that kind of masculine energy out. It just
Certainly.
It connects you and it gives you a peace. You know, I find that's the next meditation place that I always like to go to. I like to go to the forest. I'm like 15 minutes from the national forest here.
Right.
So it's nice to have that access here. And then just going into the woods, just something about it. And then the primitive, I think combining the primitive side of things kind of just brings back all the genetically things that were dispositioned within us, you know, the evolution.
It's in your DNA.
Yep.
It's sitting there waiting to wake up. So you've got to go out and do something to wake it up. And then this is a good way to do it.
Yeah, because I feel technology has really limited us into that. I mean, what's really funny, there's games about going and doing things outside, like there's games to do biking, there's games to do driving outside, and there's games to go hunting, and it's like, okay, this is kind of interesting.
Right. Yep.
So, but technology definitely takes that level away of that real connection.
That's exactly the same word I was going to use. There's the connection to us from a space that we don't actually see is not there when you're in a video game.
Yes.
It's not there in anything that you're doing virtually. Even this, you know, people are listening to us, but when you're in our presence, when people are together, that connection is different than just listening to someone talk like this.
Yeah, and it comes, I think, from the energy fields. I think there is definitely energy fields within each other. And I mean, there's some of it we could do remotely, but there's nothing like the physical presence of one-on-one.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Totally.
And then like the trees. I mean, I think the trees, just because I work a lot with Taoism. So I believe that the tree is a very representative of everything, because it is, and I talked about it in this podcast a lot. It is the representation of what is to just let go, what is to just be okay with the environment that it is, and then if you're meant to grow again, and you grow some more, and it just growing and growing, and it goes with the flow, the way we should all be, the way we all should be.
Well, they never know. A tree never knows what the season's going to be like, whether it's going to be cold or, you know, it's going to be hot or it's going to be no water. They're built to withstand that for the most part until there's real significant changes. And then, you know, I remember going to Bryce Canyon National Park a few years back, and we walked out. We went to the very top. It's over 9,000 feet in elevation at the very top of where Bryce Canyon is. It's in southern Utah. And when we got to the top, there's a hike you could take where you could go visit these bristlecone pine trees. And if you know anything about bristlecone pine trees, they're one of the oldest living organisms on the planet. They're over 5,000 years old, some of these trees.
Wow.
And I remember sitting under one of these trees and just thinking, well, not only was this here before the time that Jesus walked on the planet, it was already 2,000 years old or more when Jesus was walking on this planet, or, you know, when Columbus discovered the New World, or even going back further in time, 5,000 years. But the reality is 5,000 years to a rock is a blip in time, right?
Yeah.
Just a blip. And so it puts things into perspective when you're sitting by an organism that lives for that long. I think one of the things that I try to connect to and have tried to connect to more is the fact that I think we just come back over and over and over and over.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to come back sometime as a bristlecone pine tree. And I want to sit out there on that ridge for 5,000 years and look at that view of Bryce Canyon, because it was amazing.
Yeah, it's funny, you know, when you really look at it, I mean, humanity's really not even that old.
Right. I
I mean,
totally. Yep.
we've been here, and within 100 years, we've created so much stuff. Which, you know, I don't ever underestimate the power of humanity, but also the power of what we do to our environment also shows in that. You know, because we're trying to get so advanced, and we're trying to find some meaning to something, or we're trying to create something to make it so convenient, and we're destroying obviously some forest out there that we need, and technology is very guilty of that. But you know, there is a balance in everything, and I do feel as we adapt to our environment, I mean, it does become a balance point. We can't have one without the other. It's that duality.
Yeah.
And if we destroy nature, I would just hope that we bring back some of it too. So that's the other
Yeah.
thing that's going on right now.
Sustainability is kind of one of the buzzwords now, but I mean, you really have to think about sustainability. It's really just working in balance with nature, which is what all the native tribes did for centuries.
Yes.
And like you said, we got to these last 100 years, probably more about the last four to 500 years. It kind of came with the New World to this hemisphere, because they were mostly in balance with nature, those that lived here before.
Mm-hmm.
So when Columbus came and all the settlers and all of the pioneers and everyone came here, that all changed. You know, let's use the planet for whatever needs that we have. Mm-hmm. There's a documentary called The West by Ken Burns. I don't know if you've had a chance to watch that or not.
No, I have not. I haven't heard of it.
It's fantastic. It talks about the migration of people from the East Coast to the West Coast and everything that they did to make it into the way they wanted it to be, killing off all of the buffalo, making the railroad, going and just raping the land, trying to get all the gold out of it during the gold rush and then the silver rushes and all of these things that they did to extract everything that Mother Nature had.
Yes.
In this pristine land. It was untouched. It was here in balance. And then the takers came. Those who wanted to take, the givers were already here, but the takers came. And the takers started taking, and they're still taking and continuing to take. But now we're starting to realize that if we continue to do that, it's not sustainable. Again, that buzzword. So if it's not sustainable, what are we going to do? We got to make a choice.
Yes.
And it's not a choice as a society. You have to make a choice, Mario. I have to make a choice, Scott. Each of us as an individual have to make a choice and what we're going to do and how we can do better. And, you know, there's a lot of movements and there's a lot of protesting and ecology and different things that have cropped over the last decades. But the reality is that each individual needs to go outside and sit under a frickin' tree.
I agree with it.
That's where you start to have the understanding. Is that all that dinging come through on here too? Can you hear my microphone dinging? Hope not.
No, I don't hear anything.
Okay. Good. So once we can get back to that place where we can just go sit under a tree, and we can get back to the way the tribes who were here before us came, we're starting to see it. But these gatherings that I attend, that's what we're doing. That's where we're going. That's what it's all about. And we don't live in a place of fear like the world's going to come to an end. There are people there that are a lot of people that come that are what do they call them? Preppers. The people that are preparing, you know, for the end of the world and all that. There are a lot of people there that come that do that. But I don't live in that place. What happens, happens. I mean, if we disappear, we disappear.
Yeah, it was meant to be. I mean, that's the whole thing. That's
Exactly. The Earth is the one that's in charge. We're not. We think we are. Maybe we have to all die off and start over again. Who knows?
it's so funny, you know, that we always think that because we're the predator and the highest in the chain, we think we're all that. But in all reality, let's look at a couple things. A flood. You know, a flood is only damaging because we have forced ourselves to be in one place.
Right.
Most
Yep.
people
And held the river back.
Yep, we held the river back. We created a city where there's a swamp. I mean, Houston, Texas is one of them. I mean that
Mm-hmm.
uh, in New Orleans and you know all these coast cities, and you know I feel sorry for people you know that flood out and everything. Don't get me wrong,
Sure.
but there is a consequence when we start trying to be in an environment that normally we would be moving towards somewhere else. I mean,
Right.
that's why we were nomadic. We would move from one place, settle. Okay, the weather's changing. Okay, let's move to another one. That's working with nature, in my opinion. Now,
Absolutely.
now it's really hard because we try to industrialize everything. It's like, oh, okay, well now we need to create an office to do widgets, and then this widget is going to do this, and
Yep.
that means we stay at one place.
And what's ended up happening is rather than be in the state of allowing our lives to flow
Mm-hmm.
from one thing to the next thing and allow, because your life is meant to be that way, I believe.
I agree.
What we end up doing is forcing it, right? I'm going to force the river to stay over there and I'm going to build my house here. And if the river comes over the dike and floods my house, then God must be angry with me. Okay. Is that really what happened?
Mm,
How did you influence that by holding the river back?
right.
If we worked in harmony with nature and we realized that the river is the river is going to do what it's going to do. I mean, think back, how many years ago was it they had that huge hurricane come through Houston? How many inches of rain did you get?
Oh, Harvey, yeah.
Yeah, man. Holy cow.
Yeah, it was pretty big. And I'm close to Houston, just if nobody really knew where I was at.
Right.
So yeah, it was quite a bit. I mean, and even in the suburbs, it got hit pretty hard too. I mean, not even that far, you know. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and it was incredible. And a lot of it was based out of the bayous, or there was something that broke that was holding water back, or there was poor planning on this or poor planning on that, and it's
Mm-hmm.
incredible. I mean, water in Taoism, it's also talked about a lot. It's talked about water. It's a very patient and flexible liquid, just
Mm-hmm.
the way they say we should be living in Taoism is that we should be flexible because the water will stay there until it eventually moves to where it needs to go.
Right.
And
But
that,
it's such a powerful element.
yes,
It cracks stone. It gets down in stone and freezes and cracks stone.
I mean, look at the Grand Canyon. I mean, just over time, it created the whole thing, one river,
Amazing.
you
I
know.
know.
But you can learn a lot from it because it's patience, it's knowing not to get obstructed and just work around obstacles or whatever you want to call them, challenges, less than easy things or whatever. But it's there is a way that we can look at nature and learn a lot from it.
Yeah, I
And
agree.
and as we create more cities and as we industrialize or we chop down more trees, I think that's part of it. You know, not only the energy connection, but as we start destroying the environment and not seeing things going on, we also forget that, oh yeah, this is where that came from.
Mhm.
And
Yep.
so we put it in the back of our mind and we forget it and we have kind of made ourselves forget where we were from.
Yeah. Well, it's like going out to dinner.
Yeah.
Where do hamburgers come from? The
Yeah.
vast majority of children have no idea where a hamburger comes from.
Yeah.
They have no idea that you have to kill a cow. You have to harvest the meat from a cow in order to have a hamburger. That
Yeah.
there's a disconnect there.
Yeah.
And I think when we come back into a situation where we understand that it takes life to give life in every situation, whether you're in the animal kingdom or the plant kingdom or whatever it is, it takes life to give life.
Yeah.
It we've become so out of balance with those things. We have to really look at that. And going within and sitting under a tree, believe it or not, will actually help you understand that.
Yes.
The tree will connect to you. I'm not going to say speak to you, but the tree will connect to you as long as you allow it.
Well, I don't know if you read this study. There's actually a scientific study that was done about the trees, that their roots communicate with each other.
Yes, absolutely.
And I found that fascinating because they always talk about the trees are just trees and they're nothing, and it's like they communicate. Now, the funny part is, as I was reading the article, of course, you got to go to the comments to find out what people are saying. And some people are saying, "Oh, well, those are just chemical reactions. That's nature." It's like, well, that's all we are. Our brain is just a whole bunch of neurons and chemical reactions.
Yeah, absolutely. It's this miraculous mix of now we're able to be the perceivers of everything going on.
Yeah, it's really funny when I hear things like that.
Yeah.
We forget to look at that mirror. I mean, everything around us is a mirror. A tree is a mirror of us.
Yes, absolutely.
It's just that we forget those parts, and that we talk a lot about this in the podcast, in these podcasts, where it's about slowing down, and that's that mirror. When you slow down, we begin to see that we're all connected in one way or another,
Right?
in every way possible, and it's then once you see it, then you can unsee it. You can forget it, but it'll come back to you one way or another.
Yeah,
it's always been my belief.
Yeah, and I'm totally in agreement with that. I've noticed that connection, especially since I've been gardening, because with the sunflowers we talked about a little bit last week, when you're growing sunflowers, I allow my garden to just come naturally. I plant very little because it's been growing for so many years that everything just volunteers.
Yeah.
So it's just growing from the seeds that were left by the plants and wherever the birds put them last year, right? So this year, I've got all sorts of stuff coming up that I'm just allowing to volunteer right now. We're in the, things are just beginning to sprout. I've got sunflowers that are just small, but then I go through and I clean them out. I go around and I murder a whole bunch of sunflowers in a day, and along with a lot of the weeds and everything else. But it's so that it can be sustainable. It needs my help as far as the sunflowers go in my garden, because my garden, the reality is my garden is out of balance.
Right.
It'll get in balance if I don't do anything with it for 10 or 15 years.
Yes.
It's out of balance so it can grow the vegetables and things that man has domesticated over time to be able to grow in certain conditions. If I take a tomato seed or even a sunflower seed out in nature somewhere and I plant that just wherever, the likelihood that a domesticated plant is going to grow somewhere out in nature is highly unlikely, because there's so much grass and so much other stuff of where Mother Earth is manifesting in her creativity. That's what she does. She grows as much life as she can, because she knows that all the animals need grass, and all of the the interaction with the different kinds of animals. The plant eaters are going to be eaten by the carnivores and the predators and things like that. It's all just this big circle. But I look out in my garden and you can still see that communication going on between the plants. Two sunflowers will be growing too close to one another, and pretty soon they're leaning out sideways so they can get as much sun as they possibly can. Or one of them might just shrivel away and die because it's just not it. Who knows what it is, but it just doesn't understand. I've had two sunflowers of the same variety. I grow Russian mammoth sunflowers quite a bit, growing side by side. And midway through the season, one of them is this big around and the other one is like a pencil. So I planted them on the same day. I planted them in the same soil. So explain to me why one is an inch and a half in diameter and the other one is the size of a pencil. It's just nature. It's the way it is. That's why we're all, as human beings, different too.
Yeah, that we're all. It's kind of funny because we're all different, and yet we're all the same when it comes to the core. There's no difference at the core.
Yep.
And
everything else is the same at the core too. I
Yes.
agree.
Yeah, the chemicals and the science and everything that I do agree there's some understanding of that, but a lot of the understandings that we have right now, especially of the movement of energy and where people are talking about auras and the shamanic ceremony energy, plant medicine and all this kind of stuff that you hear Reiki,
Hmm.
all that has some type of foundation, but it's foundation that we don't understand at this point in time.
Right.
We're starting to grasp the concept. I mean, I think that's one of the reasons cannabis is becoming, well, it's almost legalized throughout the U.S. Of course, there's a couple more states, uh,
Right.
but the I think that's one of the beauties about what's going on. The pendulum has switched too much one way, and now the pendulum is coming back.
Right. I
And
agree.
hopefully we don't go all the way to the other side and we just try to stay in the middle. But it's human nature. It seems we don't learn without pain. Seems like we
Yep.
we. I wish we could change that. I guess we can change it. It's just a matter of us choosing it, right?
My wife Ray and I have talked about that quite a bit recently. About the fact that we seem to have to go through some kind of a painful experience to really grow.
Mm-hmm.
And we talk about changing the world, and we talk about making things better. And the reality is pain and suffering are never going to go away, uh,
No.
especially when we treat death as such a tragedy in our lives,
Yes.
because your death is unavoidable. And so if we treat it as something that's a tragedy, there's no reason not to mourn when you lose someone in your life. That's not what I'm
Right.
saying. But it can be devastating to the life of the one who's still living. If a
Mm-hmm.
husband loses a wife, or a couple loses a child or something, sometimes that's so devastating to them that their lives, they're almost not worth living anymore, it seems. And some of them even commit suicide and go into different kinds of addictions to hide the pain. And the reality is that all of those experiences are only to help us awaken and learn, and
Mm-hmm.
pointing us in the direction right in here, because
Yeah.
that's where you're going to find the answers. If you look to the relationships you have with your children, or the relationships you have with your parents, or the relationships you have with your friends, or anything to be what heals you, you're going to be disappointed eventually.
I agree.
Only person that can heal you is you.
Yes.
If you're with a shaman, or you're with a doctor, or if you're with anyone, they're only a facilitator of your own healing. You're the one that's doing the healing. That's my belief.
I have always agreed that the a lot of the things it's interesting because having been in this field for a while now, it's like I hear a lot of, oh, my shaman helped me with this, oh, my Reiki practitioner helped me with that. It's like,
Right.
they all they are guides.
Yeah.
Yes, we have
Opening
like
the
stuck
door.
energy that some people have, but the Reiki practitioner or the shaman or whoever you go to, all they do, they facilitated the moving, and then it's up to us to do the next steps, the next
Yes.
work.
Yeah.
Because we, when it comes down to it, we're the only ones that can choose what to do. We're the only ones that can allow people to do things to us as
Mhm.
as we are to allow us ourselves to do things to them. Because it's funny, we're very interesting creatures because for whatever reason we've been conditioned to ask for permission.
Right.
We have to ask. There was a ceremony, a sound therapy ceremony I went to, and it was a shamanic sound. And one of the statements that the person actually started with, it's like, uh, "We now give you permission to," and blank, whatever it was. And
Hmm.
it's funny. It's like that, having that validation from him saying that allows people to go into that. It's like, well, why do you need that? We really
Right.
don't.
Yeah.
But it's funny. I mean, that's what makes it so funny being this human nature. That's why talking about pain, talking about addiction. I mean, that there, all of that is we choose that.
Yeah. Absolutely. We choose to hide from it rather than feel it.
Yeah.
And I'm one who understands that well, because I did it for so long. I was an addict for a long period of time in my life.
Mm-hmm.
But I started to realize that as I felt things and as I allowed myself to feel things, and people had told me that, you need to feel. Well, it's hard to understand that you need to feel when you're in that space. It's like, no, this is way, way too painful. That's one of the things that I'm doing with this work with the Mustang medicine guy I was telling you about, where we use wild Mustangs to create this metaphor, because the horse becomes the metaphor of us in our own suffering. And if we can't allow the suffering to happen and notice it and be present with it, accepting of it and feeling it, then there's no way for us to move through it. We'll be stuck. The resistance is what causes the pain. So allowing the pain or the suffering to flow through you and feeling it. Don't judge the feeling. The feeling is your gift. The feeling is what's guiding you.
Yes.
And then over time, what ends up happening is pain and suffering don't go away. What goes away, or what changes, is that your interaction with pain and suffering changes. Where I'll give you an example. This is kind of a crazy example, but it happened to me today. So I'm, maybe this showed up for a reason for us to talk about it today. I'm a healthy person, right? And I'm not a vegetarian or vegan or anything like that. But I try and eat pretty healthy. So I got up this morning, went to the bathroom, and there was blood in my stool. And I was like, whoa, what's this about? And it was very shocking to me. And normally I would have probably freaked out. In the past, I would have freaked out. I would have called the doctor, and I would have been probably in the emergency room trying to figure out what was going on.
Yeah.
But I calmed myself down. I said, okay, life is a temporary thing, and we're not meant to live forever. I was going down that road, maybe I have colon cancer. I'm thinking about these things, but not giving it a lot of energy.
Mm-hmm.
And I had been at dinner with some friends a couple of days ago, and I was actually going to pick her up at the airport. And I was having a conversation with her, and I mentioned to her what had happened. And she goes, well, did you eat any beets the other day when we were we went to eat this vegan restaurant? She said, did you eat any beets? She's a medical doctor.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, yeah, I ate a whole plate full of beets. She's like, well, that's probably beets. That was what that was. I mean, that hadn't even occurred to me, and it had not even occurred to me that. And I'm not a person who normally eats beets, so this was something that was just very, and it was. But the interaction with it was, again, I'm glad it's not anything, but I'm at the age now where it's time for me to probably to go get a colonoscopy. I'm 57, so it's time for me to start checking those things. Probably should have already checked it before, but it could have taken me down a real rabbit hole, and now I'm totally calm about it, and everything's fine. I believe that it was the beets. I'm quite certain, probably about 95% certain that's what it was.
Well, and that's part of the other, we talk about pain, and that is part of the pain. It's like, if there's pain on that, I mean, that's the way the body talks to us, that something's wrong. It shows us pain.
Yes. Yeah.
And whether it's emotional pain, physical pain, there's always an association to something.
Mm-hmm.
If it's a physical pain, it could be a broken bone. It could be something inside, that's torn or something like that. If it's an emotional pain, we have to figure out where the tear is in that emotion, is the way I like to say it.
Right.
And, you were talking about finding what's inside. And recently I've been kind of seeing a lot of things about addiction. And a lot of people forget one big thing about addiction. It's like addiction is not necessarily just the substance. It's also different types of things. It's like there's porn addiction, there's sex addiction, there's gaming addiction. There's every type of addiction out there. And
besides the common ones, there's lots of them.
Yes. And what's really interesting, everybody just concentrates on the drugs. Like,
right.
and and to me, I go as far as even the self-help industry can
Hmm.
create an addictive behavior, because how many people do you hear saying, "Oh, I'm going to meditate to feel better"? It's like,
Right.
okay, oh, so you're medicating yourself with meditation. Okay, that's fine. It's not a drug, but is that a habit you're always going into? Is it something you're
Right.
always trying to find? And anything can be an addiction. So I don't know why, but I've been feeling very strongly about that, because I've been hearing so much. I've worked with shamanic practitioners that work with plant medicine,
Right.
and
Me too.
I've worked with people that do ceremony after ceremony, and some of them are doing it just to escape.
Right.
And I'm not saying that's, sometimes have fun or something like that. And I'm not saying that's wrong, but I'm saying once it becomes a pattern, there's something to look at.
Yeah. Anything.
Yes.
I I
Anything.
I totally agree, and I've noticed that with some people. I have friends who do a lot of different kinds of ceremonies, and they're doing them on a pretty regular basis. But I think that what we have to do is, if something is serving us and it's helping us to get in the space of, I call it the space of no thought.
Hmm.
So it is that meditative space.
Yes.
But drumming has been one of the things for me.
I think
And what
that's one of the best to
yeah,
blank the mind.
yeah, because it allows me to get in a space where I'm not thinking and connect to the vibration of the
Hmm.
drum. And I think there's in addictive behaviors, because I'll tell you right now, drumming is addictive for me. But there's a difference between it being addictive and disconnecting, and
Correct.
addictive and connecting. Because you can use marijuana, especially marijuana, because that's one that I have some experience with. You can use
Mhm.
marijuana in ways that will disconnect you from reality big time.
Yeah.
I don't feel it. I don't feel it's really too addictive of a substance, but what it can do is it can numb you from your real life. It
Hmm.
can numb you from the things that you really should be uh, focusing on. It can numb the pain, the things that are teaching you the lessons.
Yeah.
But it can also be used in ways that help you connect to who you are, like a lot of different sacred plants, which marijuana I believe to be one of them.
Hmm.
Um, Psilocybin is another one. Ayahuasca is another one. Peyote. Lots of different medicinal plants can help you get to those spaces.
Yes.
However, you said it just so perfectly. You can rely on that. All it is helping you to open a door. And
Correct.
what you have to pay attention to is this connecting me, or am I doing it to hide? Am I doing it to get away from something?
Yeah, I
Right.
like the word you said, disconnection. Is it disconnecting me from something that I don't want to feel, or is it connecting me to something greater,
Right.
or whatever,
Absolutely.
whatever words you want to use.
Right.
But yeah, and you were saying a lot of different types of plant medicines, but I'm talking more of the physical, the meditations. It's like, okay, I get into so many of these groups, and they take a meditation after meditation after meditation, and I
Hmm.
ask them, what are you looking for? What is it? Oh, it just makes me feel good. It's like, okay, well, are you not feeling good when you're out of that space?
Hmm.
What is it?
Because
And
that's where it needs to guide you to, is that
yes,
space where you're feeling good all the time, and you don't have to be meditating all the time.
yes, and there's nothing wrong. And we had a big conversation on this, Daniel and I, about you. You don't always have to be feeling good, because if you're always feeling good, how are you going to know what good is?
Right. Yeah. Totally.
Uh,
I'm
so
I'm on board with that.
you gotta feel the bad in order to know what's good. We're
Yeah.
human beings, and that's the part that everybody forgets. We're such beautiful creatures, and we're so imperfect also, but that's the beauty of it. That the imperfection is what allows us to become the beautiful beings that we are.
Yeah.
And
Well, we bring to this planet, and who knows what all of the other beings of organisms on this planet are
Yeah.
experiencing. We're doing it from a space of, hey, look what we've created.
Yes.
We're able to sit here. You're in Houston, I'm in Utah, and we're talking on this device, and we're able to do this. So there's something pretty special about what we are.
Yes.
My belief is that we are the observers. We are the perceivers.
Mm-hmm.
We are able to take in our environment, the information all around us, the connection that we have with each other and with the planet, and create it from inspiration through higher power, inspiration through universal mind, through our own consciousness. And we find that in those meditative spaces. We find that in plant medicine. We find it in drumming. There's lots of different ways that we find it.
Yes.
And when we find it, when we find what that is, when we find out what our own creativity is, what we can bring into form on the planet that will come through us, when we find what that is, that's you. That's your passion. That's your gift. And then what do? You better do something. You better create. Because if you don't create, what happens is then you stagnate.
Yes.
And if you stagnate and you don't do something, you don't create something, what ends up happening is that you get in these feelings of out of alignment and unbalanced and depression and things like that. So you need to take bold steps forward to do whatever it is that you need to do to be you. You're a gift to the world, so bring that gift.
Yeah, we're natural creators. I mean, that's part of the thing. I mean, like you said, we've created all of this music, any type of creation, music, art. I'm starting to do my fractals that we showed you on my on the other podcast that we did. So that was I've been fine tuning that, and I think I'm finally ready. Put it out.
I got to show you how you inspired me.
All right.
I went and bought this online this week. Maybe you'll remember this.
Oh, actually, I bought that same exact one.
So I'm going to make my own fractals.
Yeah, it's beautiful, isn't it? It
is. It is. And I'm not. I don't yet consider myself to be an artist. Mm-hmm. However, I love art. I love to connect, especially to Fibonacci sequence and different patterns in nature and that kind of thing, and the fractals that we talked about last week. And the stuff that you're doing is amazing. And your idea around it and the creativity that you're bringing with it, I think is powerful.
Yeah.
So when we can connect to that space of creativity in whatever way, these are. Let me see what the age it says on here.
I think it's like 5 or something.
8 and up. So,
but it's that inner child, though. The inner child is what we got to feed, and that I feel is one of the things that we also miss. We forget to feed that inner child.
Yeah,
because the inner
curiosity goes away.
Yes.
What do we got left, right?
Yep. I mean, we become dull individuals when our curiosity gets hindered. It's incredible.
You're not ever going to find me getting in a car and commuting to work ever again. that will never happen. I don't care if I have to live homeless on the street. I will not be sitting in an office doing that kind of work ever again. And I'm not judging the people that do, but I'm just saying that I understand that is out of balance. That is out of balance. It can be things that are in balance, but you really have to look at what it is you're doing every day and how that is bringing your real creation of who you are forward. If driving to work every day and doing something like that is bringing your passions forward, continue. If it isn't, stop.
Yeah, and that's the key. Everybody is different. That's why I like the expression one of the coaches always told me. It's like, you're unique, just like everybody else. Mm-hmm. And in that uniqueness, the reason I like it so much is because the uniqueness is true. That we are all unique, but everybody's unique. So if we think we're unique just because we're unique, everybody's like that. So whatever we're trying to make ourselves, but that's the beauty of it. It because we are unique, we each have our own specialty of whatever that is.
I was reading a book. I'm trying to think of what book it was. I can't think of the title right now. But it talked about the fact that sometimes we get a messiah complex, and he didn't really use that word, but when you have an awakening, or when you have something happen to you where you really start to see the truth of who you are, the divinity that you hold within you, and you start to become enlightened. The problem is that when someone does that, they think that, okay, now everyone has to see it my way. This is the truth. So now everyone has to come to me, and this is what the truth is. This is what you need to be doing. A, B, C, D, and that's the path. Well, what that is your path. That's all it is your path. It's nothing else. And where that path leads you to, then, it is where you're able to allow everyone else to also be on their path.
Mm-hmm.
I've had discussions with people. I was formerly in a religion, and I've had discussions with people that are still in that religion who can't understand why I'm not there anymore.
Mm.
And I don't judge anyone who's in that religion at all. I don't encourage people to leave. I don't encourage people to stay. I don't encourage them to do anything other than follow their own sense of what they want to do. But some of the conversations that I've had have gone somewhat like this. I'll kind of paraphrase what that was, but we can't come to an agreement that I'm not following that path anymore, and that, I'm going to hell, or I'm whatever. And because what that conversation always comes down to is, I say, okay, here's the deal. I honor what you're saying. I honor the fact that you believe what you're saying, that you're connected to what you're saying. It is your truth. I honor that, and I allow it. Now, all I ask you is to do the same for me. Allow me to be in the space where I am. Allow me to follow the path that means something to me. And if in the realm of people that are in this world, if we all acted that way, we all allowed each other to walk our own path, things would be a lot different. Things would be a lot more calm. We wouldn't be so divided, because we'd be celebrating the diversity, rather than saying this person's different than me, so I'm going to build a GD wall and not let them in my country. That's not the answer. The answer is embracing everyone.
Yes.
Helping and trying to understand those differences, and embracing the fact that we're all different.
Mm-hmm.
When you take us all together, what we really are is the manifestation of the Creator, the Source, the one deity where this all came from.
Mm.
And I don't put a name around that. That's what we all are.
Yes.
We're not God. God is us. There's this very subtle difference there.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't walk around saying you're God. I walk around saying God is you, because God is what is manifesting through all of us and everything out there around us, all the trees and all the animals. It's manifestation. Life is a manifestation of the source of all creation. That's been being said for centuries.
Yep.
And no one understands it.
It's the beauty of words, and yet it's something that words will never be able to fully explain until
words lack the ability.
Yeah. And once we put words, we've limited its capability of what it is. That's what I've always said. So
what have we learned today, Mario? So what you need to do is go out and sit under a tree, and that's where you're going to find the answer.
So I guess that's your challenge for everybody, huh?
That's my challenge for everybody. Go out and sit under a tree, and then you'll know.
I'm going to add on a little bit. So once you sit in that tree, my challenge to you is once everybody gets out of the tree, look at how you're similar to the tree, and look how you're different than the tree. And chances are you're going to see a lot of similarities if you really sit down and think about it.
Beautiful. Totally true.
Once again, thank you, Scott. And next week,
my pleasure.
Next week we might have you. I'm not sure. Let me see if I can get Daniel, and maybe we can get a three-way conversation so he can get to meet you. He only will know you through the through the recordings we've been doing. So anyway, I will let you know. And
Sounds great.
thank you, Scott. Thank you, audience.
Pleasure's mine.
And many blessings to you all. And remember, go sit under a tree. Bye, everybody.